welcome back to I-24 News Morning Edition. We're joined by the Economy Magazine correspondent, Daniel Roth. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
And the defense editor, Nurit Zunger. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Daniel, we'll start with you. What do you have for us?
Israeli poverty is on the rise. This is actually a surprise. Last year it had dropped a little bit. This year it jumped up a little bit. We're talking about somewhere between 1.7 million and 2.6 million people living in poverty in this country. And I can explain a little more after the video.
Let's take a look.
The Israeli National Insurance Institute filed its annual report last week, finding that 22% of Israelis live in poverty. The numbers from the Central Bureau of Statistics suggest that just over 1.7 million people, including over 776,000 children, were living below the poverty line in 2014, an increase of 0.2% from the previous year. And the reactions from Israel's parliamentarians, ministers and opposition alike, spoke to the issue.
One of the main reasons for the rise in poverty level is the slashing of child welfare programs that were undertaken by the previous government.
Netanyahu is personally responsible for the level of poverty in Israel. In 2003, he hit hard at hundreds of thousands of Israeli citizens, and in 2013, he hit them all over again.
Meanwhile, Latet, an umbrella organization for Israeli charities, says that the number of poor is closer to 2.6 million, and zooming in on certain sectors gives tough details to the already high numbers of poor. The hardest hit sectors are the 22.3% of elderly living in poverty, as well as the 54.3% of ultra-Orthodox families and 52.6% in the Arab sector. And working families are feeling the rising hardships as well, with the poverty rate jumping more than half a point to 13.1% last year.
It is very important to look at workers. We very much want to live in a society in which employed people are not poor, but we see that we have not yet achieved this goal.
Israel sits right behind Mexico with the second highest poverty rate of OECD countries. Meanwhile, Welfare and Social Services Minister Chaim Katz called for $18 billion to be invested to bring poverty levels to OECD norms in coming years.
You know, Daniel, every year at the same time, the National Insurance Institute releases this report, and it always comes with these, damning statistics. And the consequences are none to be seen, really. You don't see really any kind of change in policy, despite the changes in government.
Well, actually, what we see is worse and worse policy.
Okay.
We see more and more privatization. It's harder and harder, as was mentioned in the report. It's harder and harder to be a working person and survive. You know, we see statistics in the last few years, over 80% of people rely on their parents for support. It takes, like 100 months of salaries to even think about buying an apartment. The statistics are off the chart in this country. The poverty level is about double the OECD average, and it doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon.
And a lot of, the finance ministers historically have always said, we're just cleaning up the mess that my predecessor put on for me. And the current finance minister, Moshe Kahlon, made his whole campaign really about making an open market, making services that would be cheaper, lowering costs for, cell phone services and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, he was very successful with cell phones. He brought those to very, very low rates. But
that's about it, right?
But that's one of the big successes we can speak to with Kahlon. When it comes to utilities, when it comes to food on the table, when it comes to the things people need to survive, actually most of the research shows that privatizing, opening up those markets, deregulating those markets does damage. It does more. When you need something to survive, you need the government to step in and help make sure that it's affordable one way or another. What we've seen from Kahlon, from Lapid before him, are these wrong-minded, I think, would be a simple term for using it, ways forward. We saw Lapid try to encourage Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox communities to get to work by cutting child allowances. This was sort of a negative kick in the behind that simply didn't work, as we see the numbers. Over half of ultra-Orthodox families are living in poverty.
I'm going to take your kick in the behind phrase and move it to Spain, where the ruling party there has been kicked in the behind and after losing a parliamentary majority.
Yes, well, so they're still ready to form a coalition. They don't have a majority. They're working on a coalition. This is the first time since fascism ended that the two-party system has actually broken down. And we see Podemos, which is this incredible party that took 1 in 5 votes. They took over 20% of the vote, and they grew out of the last 5 years the Spanish version of Occupy Wall Street, the Indignados movement. They grew out of this with a mandate to stop austerity measures, to work for working people, to kind of raise up the flag of what I'm terming the Occupy movement, but it's something broader than that, and bring that really to politics, and it's really, really working. We saw the field open up not only to the conservatives, who will probably still be in charge, and the socialists who are still there, but Podemos, and to another liberal party. We're seeing the field really open up, and we're seeing really people disappointed with the two-party system. Which
will almost certainly impact politics afterwards, policies and so forth. Yes, you say the conservatives still have the majority, but they're going to have to cede to others. Let's take a look at the following report.
Spanish national elections saw the ruling conservative People's Party take another win, albeit slim, with over 73% turning out to vote. Though unemployment has dropped from a 2013 high of 27% to 21%, the still high number of out-of-work people, suspected corruption, and a separatist movement in Catalonia were central themes in the election.
I believe Spain needs a stable government. Over the past 4 years, we've accomplished many things. Spaniards have made much effort. Now we must persevere in the things we've done over the years.
But the big story was the surge of the Podemos party, a left-wing outgrowth of Spain's anti-austerity movement in the country which, out of EU countries, only follows Greece in unemployment. The new Podemos party took third place in the election, and together with the Socialist Party, hold 175 seats in the 350-seat parliament, just one shy of a majority. The win signals to most that in the face of ongoing economic strife, Spain's 4-decade-old two-party platform has given way to an open field.
Never again a Spain without its people. Here today we pledge ourselves to a new commitment that defends social justice and decency. Democracy has to reach the economy so that human rights as well as dignity are not violated.
Indeed, Podemos' share of the vote was just over 20%, and a signal of the mood in Spain. Meanwhile, the Conservatives hold 122 seats, and so they will have to look to form a coalition to reach enough seats to rule.
So as the cliche goes, time will tell to see if actually policies are being changed, or it was just a volatile election, and that's that.
One of the big things that's underlying all of this is that Podemos and the Socialists almost had a majority. And it's huge. It's a huge loss, even though they won for the Conservatives. And, we saw the unemployment rate drop from 27 to 21% in the last couple of years. But really, people are disappointed, and they're looking to new policies. They're looking against all odds for some other government to come in and really implement new programs.
Well, and the question is, will they be able to translate this into legislation? And that will have to
always the question.
Always the question. Daniel Roth, thank you for joining us. Stay with us.